my name is Sim Kern, pronouns they, them. I was a literacy specialist for over 10 years, and I recently started a series on how to teach your 3-year-old to read. And it's been about 6 months, I think, since I shot the first video. And I have some updates for you. The last time I was sharing this, I was really promising you guys that this book was all you needed to teach your child to read in 100 easy lessons. Now, I still stand by this book as having, it has all of the content you need to teach your child to read, but from what I've learned working with my 3-year-old is not going to take 100 days, and you're not going to be able to just use this book. So there were some things I forgot about when I made that first video. The first is that when I was a literacy instructor using this tool, I was primarily using it with older kids who'd had a lot of time in school to be absorbing print in lots of other modes from lots of other teachers. And so claiming that this book alone is enough for you if you're a stay-at-home parent with your kid in the pandemic, they're not going to daycare, they're not getting any other print awareness or phonemic awareness practice, songs, games. I will say now conclusively, this will not be enough to teach your kid to read straight through. The other thing that I ran into is the attention span of a 3-year-old. So when I started this with my daughter, and I started it at age 3, and they recommend you wait till 3.5, so I maybe also jumped the gun. But she was really excited about it at first, and I would say for the first 20 lessons, she was loving it. I didn't have to use any kind of motivational system until we got to around lesson 25, because doing the lessons and that one-on-one attention from me was enough for her to be having fun with it and intrinsically wanting to do it. The problem, which I did say in my introductory video about this book, is that it sometimes ramps up too quickly and the jumps in difficulty come a little too fast and you have to fill in the gaps. I was prepared to that from using this book with older kids. I knew where those places were and I knew I'd have to do a little more work. What I wasn't prepared for was that a 3-year-old has a much shorter attention span than a 6th grader. And the lessons start to get a lot longer the further you progress in the book, and they're just too long to be a reasonable amount of time to be working with a kid in a day. Another thing that I had said was a drawback of this curriculum was that it is very bare bones. It is all of the curricular knowledge you need to teach your kid to read fluently, but without any bells or whistles. There's no colors besides, the printed text for the teacher, for the parent to read. There's no pictures or manipulatives or fun stuff really built in. So I was saying you're going to kind of have to bring the fun. I tried to do that with, sometimes doing lessons on flashcards or with magnets, or we could use paint instead of crayons to do our writing practices at the end. But I found that I really needed to buy a few more items to make reading fun than what was provided in this book. And I sort of underestimated my ability to make this book alone fun enough to keep my daughter engaged. So I started running into some resistance from her. Like I said, when I shot those original videos about this curriculum, we were around, I think, lesson 25, and things had been going great until then. The lessons, she was attacking them pretty flawlessly, they didn't feel too difficult. But the curriculum ramps up and gets very difficult. There's a big jump right around lesson 30 and then again at lesson 50. Between lessons 30 and 50, I started having to implement with her a motivational sticker system, which I showed you guys in one of my subsequent videos. In order to get her to sit down and do the lessons and persist through them, I was really having to use a sticker chart, and then her stickers she would eventually earn up some kind of small toy after about every 10 lessons or so. That worked really well for a while. It got us from lesson 30 to lesson 50, but she was getting more and more reluctant to do the lessons out of this book. The stories get longer and longer, and then something happens at lesson 50 where they take away the little dots under the words. The stories also all of a sudden are very long and all on one page. And I think that this just became totally overwhelming to my daughter. She loves still doing the first part of the lesson. Like, she loves saying the sounds. She'll persist through the list. Okay, you know, she might need a couple reminders. But then she sees all this text and it's just overwhelming and she just shuts down. I mean, she's a 3-year-old. And here I was like really pushing her, you know, using all these motivational systems. You can't watch TV until you do your reading lesson every day. Like, and I know better than to do that. Like, I know, and I told you in my first video, like, if it's seeming too hard for your kid, if they're really struggling, you should stop, you should go back. And I did. We were somewhere around lesson like 45 or something, and she was really getting, you know, resistant to doing it. And I said, let's go back to when it was easy. Let's go back to when she was really successful. And we redid lessons like 30 through 45. But once again, once those texts got too long for her, she just hit a wall. And I realized finally one day she was like, I don't want to do reading. I hate reading. And that was just such a wake-up call for me. Like, I know better than I told you in the first video. The most important thing is to keep it fun. The most important thing is not to be like forcing them to do it. But because I had made this YouTube video and like promised you guys, like, yes, you'll be able to teach your kid using this book and only this book, I felt like I had to make it work with her. And so I pushed her a lot harder than I should have probably. So I said, okay, we're taking a break. We're not going to be using that book anymore. But I don't want to lose all these great skills she's gained. Sounding out tons of words, knew most of her letter sounds before, besides a few of the more rare ones. She'd learned almost all of them. She was blending fluently. So I've invested in a couple of products that were colorful and fun and more game-like, and was thinking maybe we can like play some games to keep these phonics skills up, and maybe that will work better than the book. And it really has. So we haven't used the Teach Your Child to Read in probably about a month or a month and a half, but there's been a few things that have been wonderful tools to help fill in some of those gaps from the book, to give her lots of extra practice in those skills that she's now been introduced to. And like I said, I don't think that anything is going to introduce those skills that I know of better than this book. Like, I don't think she'd be as successful on something like this fill in the blank word building game if you started your kid with this without having done all that phonics practice and introduction with the book first. I don't think that like this game alone is a way to teach your kids phonics, but using this to practice phonics once they've had that background and that really good instruction, it has been really great. Every day I'm trying to make sure we do some practice with numbers, and if you want, I'll do another video on some of the fun number game practice things that I've found for that as well. Play a game or two with sounds or reading, and then we do try to read a Bob book every day. And, you know, we're reading books at bedtime. I try to make sure she gets some like outside time, some running time. If the weather's bad, we'll do like a Just Dance YouTube video or a Cosmic Kids yoga video. And we do art time. And then once all that is kind of done, then she can watch some TV. And there's plenty of time in between for free play. We don't just sit there and boom, 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 do all these structured activities in a row. Like, those are interspersed between her just playing because she's 3. But once I have like hit math, reading, some art, and some movement, then I'm like, okay, go watch TV. Real talk for pandemic parents. Okay, so let me show you the things I found I really love. This kit is so great. So this is a Lakeshore Learning folder games kit. One of these is $40. It's such a good value though, because there's 10 games inside and they're all great. I have this one, and I also have the one for numbers and counting, which are awesome for 3-year-olds. They say that these are pre-KK. I think it does say 4+. You'll kind of know if your kid tends to be okay with games that are a bit older than 3. You know, my 3-year-old's doing great with these games. So within this kit, you've got 10 games. Some of them focus on listening, and they're all phonemic awareness, which is listening to the letter sounds in words. And if you remember from my first video about Teach Your Child to Read, I did say that a lack of phonemic awareness practice was a major drawback of the curriculum. So I would definitely recommend this as a supplement to that book. Some of the games practice ending sounds, so listening for the last sound in a word. Some focus on rhyming skills, some focus on listening for beginning sounds, and then there's a couple of games for listening for middle sounds. They also learn to count syllables and count sounds in words. Now, when I first got this, I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna just start playing the beginning sounds games, listening for beginning sounds, because I don't want to overwhelm her with like all these different skills. But she looked at the back and she wanted to play all these different games, and I've been surprised that she's been able to handle it. Some of them she needs a lot more help than others. Definitely the hardest ones are the middle sounds. But each game, like I'll show you one example, each game is basically like a folder. That's the game board, and it comes with some pieces. I love that everything is already like cut out for you, and it's all really like high quality, thick paper laminated. These aren't going to fall apart after playing it 1 or 2 times. And so then, okay, I think this is a rhyming one. So you've got Jeep, and you're gonna have to really help them with it the first couple times, like Jeep. Okay, let's say a couple of these words and see if we can find something that rhymes with Jeep. Clown, no. Car, Jeep, no. Rat, Jeep, no. Sheep, Jeep. Do you hear it? And they rhyme. Jeep and sheep rhyme because they both end in eep. And so then they put their little token here. And all of the cards and all of the games have the answers on the back, which is great because they can also just play it like a puzzle even when you're not there. And like I said, the first couple times we played it, I had to really hold her hand through the activities. But the more we play them, the more she's able to do a lot of it independently. And because there's 10 in the box, you don't get bored with them. So she loves playing these. I don't have to use any kind of motivational system to get her to play it. I don't have to bribe her with stickers or toys or TV time. Like, she just wants to play these games. And that is so refreshing after like reading lessons were becoming such a grind. So that's a great phonemics awareness game. Here's a really great phonics game that I found. So this is fill in the blank word building. Now this box, you could start this before you've even done any of Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons. This one, I think they need to be at least around lesson 30 to use it, because Momo's made it all the way to lesson 50. She's able to do almost all of the cards like magnets with all of the letters. And then there's just these cards, a single letter sound missing. So for example, hat, and I have to help her identify, okay, what's the sound that's missing? We have a and a t, hat. What's the missing sound? Again, she needs some help with it, but first I'll have her identify, okay, the missing sound is ah. Then she goes here and looks for ah, and then plugs it in. The only thing is the orthography, getting used to playing these other games, the orthography is going to be different than it was in Teach Your Child to Read. So if you remember in Teach Your Child to Read, the ah sound is taught with the serif kind of A with the hood on top. And so you're going to need to sort of explicitly show them, okay, this ah and this is also ah, and practicing having them write it will also help. So this has been great. Again, she likes playing this game. It just feels like a fun game. I don't have to motivate her to do it or anything. She just wants to do it. What else? So some days we'll play this. Some days we'll play that. Some days and then most days I'm trying to get her to read a Bob book. So Bob books are little easy phonics readers. I think they move way too fast. I wish you had 5 times as many books working on each set of sounds. Because they introduce sometimes 4 new sounds in a single book, which is way too many if you ask me. So we've actually only been working on the first 7 books. And each day we read one of those 7 books, and those are still challenging for her with everything that she's learned in Teach Your Child to Read. The one letter I had to introduce was B. Teach Your Child to Read really waits a long, long time to teach B after D, so that the kids don't get those confused. But she was only a few lessons away from learning B, so I introduced it when we got to that point in the Bob books. But like I said, I found she's really struggling once we get to like book 6 or 7. So we're just repeating reading 1 through 7 again until I feel like she's like really got those to mastery, and then we'll keep going. I think the reason she's just so much more successful reading the Bob books than the Teach Your Child to Read stories is that there's just less print on the page. And I think that's one of the things that's really blocking my daughter from reading those stories in the Teach Your Child to Read. It's just so much print on the page and it's overwhelming. These Bob book stories are probably about as long as those stories in the book, but because they're just seeing, you know, a few words at a time, 1 sentence per page, and then they're sort of rewarded with the picture, it just feels more manageable to them, and it feels like they're reading a real book. Something else that is really important to keep up with is their writing practice, and actually I haven't been doing as good with this as I should. As you know, the Teach Your Child to Read lessons, every lesson ends with them practicing writing letters. So I would just make sure to keep that up. Invest in a good tablet like this. This is from Spark, and it's got the nice big dotted lines for them to write on. And you know, we're at the stage where we're mostly still, you know, tracing numbers, but then she'll have to start, you know, practicing. This is numbers. I don't know why I grabbed it. We're working on numbers, writing numbers as well as letters, but then practicing, you know, I'll trace a few and then she has to write, you know, the rest on her own. Ways to make handwriting fun: using paint and big paper, using markers, gel pens, like different mediums, and like having like a picture they can trace, and then also write the word, you know, anything like that. Anything you can do to make it fun, but having them practice their handwriting. In terms of teaching handwriting grip, I found a great game that my daughter loves. This is also from Lakeshore Learning. I'm a little bit obsessed from Lakeshore. The ultimate dream would be being sponsored by Lakeshore because I could buy all their products. But so this is Get Ready to Write Gumball Grab, and it teaches you the proper 3-finger grip for your pencil. And basically there's like all these little gumballs, I'll show you, tong things, and they, you know, pick a card and it tells them how many gumballs they get, and they have to learn to kind of do this motion. It's strengthening their hand for writing, and it's also teaching that proper grip. I was a little bit skeptical, but I wanted to give it a try, and she likes it. I can tell she's like building her stamina with it. Like the first couple times we played the game, it was very difficult for her. Now she's much more confident with it. And I see that transferring over when she's like coloring or drawing. She's more just going right to the proper pencil grip, and I'm not having to remind her or correct her. So especially if you like haven't even started teaching your kids writing at all, definitely check this out. The last thing that I'll mention is that we are starting to read books to her in a different way. So when kids are like babies and toddlers, before they are learning to read, before they've learned any phonics, there's actually really not much of a point in like reading very slowly and pointing out the words like up, pup. In fact, you want to be going pretty quickly with your reading. I mean, slow enough that they can hear the different words as they're babies and toddlers and picking up language, but quickly enough that you're holding their interest through that story. Now, the way we're reading certain books is totally changing. So first I want to say that I recognize that Dr. Seuss is problematic, and it's not great. He was really racist towards Asian American people. He was anti-Asian American immigration, and he wrote some really racist cartoons for adults, and that's terrible. And I wish that we had books of like colored, high quality phonics, hardbound books that are all phonics based and teaching phonics in the sort of brilliant way that Dr. Seuss did, but that doesn't exist as far as I have found it. Unfortunately, like in kids publishing and picture book publishing, the focus is now overwhelmingly on, you know, beautiful stories and beautiful art, multiculturalism, like all of those things are so important and wonderful. And you've known in all my picture book videos that I'm like all about that. But there aren't new versions of Dr. Seuss books coming out, books that are teaching phonics the way that Dr. Seuss did, in kind of a brilliant way of doing it. So we are reading Dr. Seuss, knowing he's problematic. We don't put him on a pedestal or anything, but these books are very useful tools. And I really hope that publishing gets more interested in publishing phonics books for emergent readers that are fun and colorful and silly and really structured in a way that's gradually teaching kids more and more phonics sounds in the way that these books are. So that's my spiel on Dr. Seuss, and that's my rant on that. And yes, we're reading Hop on Pop because this book, from all my years of teaching, is the first like real hardbound book. It's the easiest Dr. Seuss book. It's the first one that kids are going to be able to read on their own. Now, my daughter's not there yet, but she is starting to follow along with us when we read. Now, I do that with these Dr. Seuss books. I don't do that with these Bob books. These Bob books are for her to read on her own, okay? I'm not saying the words and she's kind of parroting after me. I don't do that with these. For these, she's got to read it. But for this book, for Dr. Seuss books, for any books with like very simple phonics language, I'm okay with her kind of reading along with me. I think that that's helpful for her and that's building confidence. But what I'm doing is I'm like really showing with my finger which sound I'm on, and I'm stretching it to the point that it's probably infuriating to listen to if you're not like learning to read phonics. So it's really slow. I'll be like, up, pop, pop, is up. And she'll be reading it along with me. And that's really exciting. So we'll do maybe like one of these at bedtime. We might not get through the whole book because it's slow. It takes a long time, but we're practicing, some of those pages. And then we'll read a couple other books with just me reading it to her like a story, like not trying to sound out every single word. So those are the things that we're doing with reading now. I feel like life is so much better. We're not battling over doing reading lessons every day. Like I said at the beginning, you want the journey of teaching your child to read to be like joyful and fun. And if it's feeling like you're pulling teeth, it's getting really stressful, or if you're getting frustrated, it's time to stop and give it a break and figure out something else that's going to be more fun for the both of you. We will come back to this at some point, but we need to come back to it when she's really confident. I actually tried yesterday to go back to that lesson that we left off on. And again, she flew through the sounds, she flew through sounding out the words, and then we got to the story and she just saw how long it was and just like, nope, walked away, like didn't want to do it anymore, and I didn't push it. So I'm hopeful that, continuing to play all these games, reading the Bob books, reading the Dr. Seuss books together, eventually we're going to come back to teach your child to read, and we're going to be able to finish that last 50 lessons where it's really teaching the long vowel sounds and some of the vowel blends and consonant blends that we haven't really gotten to yet. But she's 3.5. She's already like way ahead of the game. There's no rush to get there. So we're just, in the meantime, having fun, spending a little bit of time, maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes a day max, playing around with sounds, playing around with letter sounds and phonics and words. And that's amazing. If you're able to do that with your kid, that's amazing. You're providing them everything that they need, everything that they would be getting in daycare if they could attend. And I hope this video is helpful to some of you who maybe been feeling stuck like I was, and I give you total permission to like step back and try something else for a little while. So one of the things about being a reading teacher and a literacy teacher was a constant journey of being humbled and of being reminded that every kid is different, and there's never a curriculum that's like one size fits all. You always have to find a way to make it work for your kid that's in front of you, whether it's a student or your own child. So anyways, hope this video was helpful. Happy New Year. If there's other products or phonics book series you want me to try, let me know. If you have good suggestions for phonics-based books besides Dr. Seuss, let me know. And I'll see you next time. Bye.